Hi everyone, I'm Nick Olivo, and today we're going to see how to build an automated alert that pops up whenever one of your Call of Cthulhu characters goes indefinitely insane. Note that we will be using mods for this, so a pro account is required to do what I'm about to show you. Before we dive in, I'd just like to thank Roll20 for sponsoring this video. In Call of Cthulhu, if a character loses 1/5 or more of their current sanity in one game day, they go indefinitely insane. And that indefinitely insane threshold is listed right here on their character sheet. So in Lenny's case, if his sanity dips to 32 or lower, he goes indefinitely insane. Thing is, in the heat of the moment, it's easy for a player to miss the fact that they've crossed that threshold, and looking at the character's tokens, there's not an easy way for the keeper to immediately know that the character has crossed that threshold as well. So what we're going to do today is see how to build an alert that pops up anytime a character's sanity crosses that threshold so that you as the keeper can immediately take action. So the first thing you need to do is come to your game's settings page and install the Script Cards mod. Script Cards comes to us from the amazing Kurt Jagers. Kurt, thank you so much for this mod. It really is quite literally, no pun intended, a game changer. Now, if you've never installed a mod before, what you want to do is click on the mod library here and then search for the word Script Cards. It'll show up. You can then add it to your game and you're good to go. We're going to be using a feature from Script Cards called triggers. And basically what triggers allow you to do is listen for certain events that happen in-game and then perform actions based on those events. So we can trigger things to happen when the ribbon on the campaign changes, when your turn order changes. But what we're focused on today is when a specific attribute changes. So when a character's sanity attribute changes, we want to check to see if the threshold has been crossed. And I'll drop a link to this Script Cards wiki down in the video description so you can check out all the other cool things that you can do with triggers. But for right now, let's swing back into our game. And back in our game, the first thing we want to do is go into our journal and we're going to create a new character. And we're going to call this character Script Cards _ triggers. And this has to be exactly as you see here. Capital S in script, capital C in cards, no space between them, and then an underscore, and then capital T in triggers. So this is exactly how it has to be named. It doesn't matter if you make this an NPC or whatever. We're just going to edit the sheet directly because what we're going to do is go over to this Attributes and Abilities tab. And what Script Cards triggers do is they look to this character sheet and then they look to see if any special abilities are defined. And those abilities are what determines what events that the Script Cards triggers is listening for. And you remember earlier we said that we wanted to key off of an attribute changing. So what we're going to do is we're going to add an ability called change : attribute : sanity. So anytime a character's sanity attribute changes, we're going to run whatever code is listed here in this ability. Now this box is tiny, so what I'm going to do is tuck the Script Card Triggers character sheet away for a minute, and let's bring up our trusty Notepad++ window. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is type !script to open curly braces and then to closing curly braces, and everything between these sets of curly braces is part of the script card. When you're working with triggers, the first line that you need to add is a special comment that looks like this: -- pipe trigger replacements. Basically what this allows script cards to do is provide some information about the event that we're firing, in this case the sanity attribute changing. So without this comment the code will not work properly, so make sure you've got that. Now the next thing we want to do is figure out what our character's current sanity is after the change. So if I've clicked on Lenny here and I've dropped his sanity down from 40 to 39, what I want to do is grab that 39 and see if it's below the threshold. So we're going to do that with a line of code that looks like this. Okay, so what's actually happening here? Well, when the change attribute sanity event fires, you've got a handful of object properties available to you, and they're related either to the old version of the attribute or the new version of the attribute. And today we're going to be focused on the new version of the attribute because that's the one that has the most current value. And so what you do here is you say attribute new and then one of these names over here. So if we want to get the current value of sanity, we're going to say attribute new current. If we wanted to get the name of the attribute that had changed, we would say attribute new name. But for right now, let's jump back to our game. You can see we've got attribute new current. That's going to give us the current value of our sanity, which will be 39. And we're storing that in a variable called updated sanity. Now let's put Notepad aside for a second and let's open up Lenny's character sheet. When we look at Lenny's character sheet, we can see that Lenny's insane value is a 32. So we want to check to see if his current sanity is less than or equal to this indefinitely insane property. And that's shown here on his character sheet in attributes and abilities. And you can see right here, it's called insane threshold. So we need to get the value of insane threshold. And the way we're going to do that is with a line of code that looks like this. And this is very similar here. So we're starting out with attribute new character ID. So we're getting the ID of the character whose attribute has changed. And then look at that character and retrieve the value of their insane threshold. So in Lenny's case, it's going to be a 32. And we're going to take that 32 and we're going to store it in a variable called threshold. Okay, so now we need to check to see if the updated sanity has crossed that threshold. And we're going to do that with a line that looks like this. So we start out here, -- question mark is a conditional statement. So you can think of this as saying if. So if the updated sanity value is less than or equal to the threshold, then, that's what this first pipe means, we're going to go to a subroutine called crossed threshold. Otherwise, which is what the second pipe means, we're going to go to a subroutine that says didn't cross the threshold. So what are these subroutines all about? Okay, so the way these work is in script cards, we're going to define our subroutines. We're going to say crossed threshold, and we're also going to say didn't cross threshold. And I'll explain what these do in just one second. Okay, so basically what happens here is if we cross the threshold, that is our sanity is lower than or equal to the threshold, we jump down here and we're going to perform whatever operations are listed between this marker and this marker. If we didn't cross the threshold, we're going to jump down here. We're going to perform whatever operations are between this marker, and then we return to the executing line. So our next line here is going to be -- because at this point we're done. Either we crossed the threshold or we didn't cross the threshold. We don't need to do anything else after that. Okay, so let's define what happens if we didn't cross the threshold first. So Lenny is still at 39 out of 40 sanity. He hasn't crossed that threshold of 32 yet. There's no problem. We don't need to do anything. We don't need to display anything in chat. So for that, what we're going to do is put in a single line that says hide card 1. And what this means is just suppress the output of the script card. Don't show anything in chat. Don't display anything to any users. It's just like nothing happened, because technically nothing did happen. They lost sanity, but they didn't cross the threshold. Nothing we need to alert on. So now let's fill in what happens when we do cross that threshold. So the first thing that we want to do is whisper the output to the GM. Right, because we don't want this to go to all our players. We just want the GM to be alerted that a character has crossed the threshold. So we're going to say -- whisper, and we're whispering to the GM. Then what we're going to do is we're going to put in a title in our card that says that a character has lost 20% of their sanity and thus has gone indefinitely insane. And this line right here works very similarly to what we saw up here. We're getting a reference to our character ID, and using that character ID, we're retrieving the character's name. So it'll be Lenny Valentine has lost 20% of his sanity, which means he's gone indefinitely insane. And then we just want to display a couple of lines of information to our keeper to let them know what the character's current sanity is, their max sanity, and their indefinite insanity threshold. And that's what these lines right here do. This -- means that we are displaying text output. And what we're displaying is the character's updated sanity that we retrieved earlier, the attribute new max. This is the maximum sanity value and then the indefinite insanity threshold. And this is it. This is everything that we need. So now what we can do is copy this, and let's jump back into our script cards triggers character sheet. We're going to paste this code into the change attribute sanity section. We'll save that, close triggers. And I found that sometimes you need to restart your sandbox after you add a new trigger, so I'm just going to do that just to be safe. Okay, and now let's go ahead and let's drop our character's sanity by 1. So, okay, we haven't crossed the threshold. We got no message displayed. Now let's drop it by a bunch. And there we go. We now have our message being displayed saying that Lenny has lost 20% of his sanity. We see his current sanity, we see his max sanity, and we see his indefinite insanity threshold. So this is now all working, and we have a way to know exactly when our characters drop below that insanity threshold. According to the rules, when you lose a fifth of your sanity in a single game day, you go indefinitely insane, and then the character needs to reach a place of safety so they can recover and rest up and kind of get their head on straight again. So what that means, though, is that the character now has a lower amount of sanity. In Lenny's case, he's got 20 sanity, which means that the next game day, his sanity threshold is going to be lower. So what we do is open up his character sheet, and now that he's in a new game day, click this button right here in the Indef Insane section of the character sheet, and that resets his threshold down to that lower value. So now, as he continues going out in the scenario, if his sanity hits 16 or lower, he's going to go indefinitely insane again. And the beauty of this is that our newly created script card trigger will pick up on that. So if we drop Lenny's sanity down to, say, 15, there we go. Now we've got that he's lost another 20% of his sanity, and he has gone indefinitely insane again. Lenny's having a rough week. So there you have it, setting up an automated alert whenever one of your characters goes indefinitely insane in Call of Cthulhu. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please give it a like and consider subscribing. And until next time, folks, happy gaming.